Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for coming today.
I would like to thank the organizers for putting on this event.
I believe we all share a passion for saving the world, and to that end, we humbly submit the following.
My name is Grayson Bass.
And I'm Pelech, and
We
we're
are
with a firm called Mayor Wilson, where we do innovation consulting across startups,
Large enterprises, in essence startups within large companies,
social initiatives,
as well as teach a collaborative applied innovation curriculum at Rotman, specifically within the Global Executive MBA program.
so clearly we're pretty serious.
Most of the time.
But today, we decided to give you a different perspective on social enterprise and social entrepreneurship.
We don't speak regularly, but when we do,
We joke around that we try to say something stupid. Why waste the opportunity?
right or wrong,
Hopefully provocative,
and hopefully what we share with you today forces you to think and reflect on some of your own challenges through a new lens.
hence our topic today,
Coconut innovation. We stole the name,
In fact, we steal most things.
and it's not just us, we all do.
We're all inspired by something that we read
That we see,
or that we experience.
and most of what you'll hear today is a synthesis of a bunch of folks much smarter than us.
What we're stealing from first today is an award-winning documentary called The Coconut Revolution.
If you haven't seen it, you might want to. It's worth it.
Most everyone will love it.
Except for maybe some of mining company executives, some military generals.
Maybe the IMF, the WTO, and maybe a couple of other folks, but don't worry, everyone else will love it.
We're going to tell you a little bit about the documentary and share with you the insights that struck and inspired us. This is the modern-day story of an incredibly innovative and committed native people's remarkable victory over traditional Western colonial power.
The island of Bougainville, which was part of Papua New Guinea, rose up in arms to seek their independence, largely motivated by the horrendous conduct of giant mining corporation Rio Tinto Zinc, RTZ, and their copper mine.
This is what is left of a mountain in the heart of the island. The island's people had enough of seeing their environment ruined and being treated as pawns by RTZ, so they decided to forcibly close down the mine.
Not an atypical scenario thus far.
An almost mercenary-like Papua New Guinea army, the PNGDF, were mobilized in an attempt to put down the rebellion.
And then later, actual mercenaries were brought in.
The newly formed Bougainville Revolutionary Army began the fight with bows and arrows and sticks and stones against a heavily armed adversary, armed in part by Australia, and they still managed to retain control of most of their island.
Good so far, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Realizing they were beaten on the ground, the PNGDF imposed a gunboat blockade around Bougainville.
In an attempt to strangle the BRA into submission, but the blockade seemed to have little or no effect.
I learned naval tactics while at the United States Naval Academy, and I still have a passing interest in military strategy. A blockade or siege is intended to force into submission a population and limit the ability to even negotiate favorable terms once concluded.
What the blockade did, however, was to inspire an environmental and spiritual revolution, and we would add a revolution of innovation and entrepreneurship.
In fact, an awakening not dissimilar from what I hope everyone here is hoping for today.
With no shipments getting in or out of the island, guess what?
Not only did they build their own weapons and guns,
Yes, starting with slings and arrows,
and then progressing to something more akin to modern-day weapons,
and getting to the point that they were actually tracking serial numbers on all their parts,
they obviously had to grow all of their own food.
and it had to be a diverse crop that was focused on local consumption.
They needed to have food security and a surplus.
The surplus being key here today, and we'll get to that later,
They built their own homes.
which were actually better than the ones provided for them by RTZ.
They created their own medicine and health system.
They created their own education
They
system,
maintained their own transportation fleet.
trucks and boats,
They built a power grid.
from scrap materials from the abandoned mine.
They harnessed hydropower.
They processed their own biodiesel,
They collect scraps for innovative recycling and reuse,
and they built their own musical instruments.
and maintained their culture. The reference to coconuts was that nothing was wasted.
Coconuts were used for food
Husked for baskets.
and processed for biofuel. Nothing was wasted. Everything had a use, if one was innovative.
The best line in the movie was when the leader of the revolution lamented,
In unfortunate terms,
when the embargo was lifted.
Too bad the embargo didn't last longer.